Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar, A Practical Guide to ECM Modernization. I'm Teresa Resick, Vice President of Market Intelligence here at AIIM, and AIIM is your host of today's event. KnowledgeLake and Microsoft are the underwriters of today's webinar, and we thank them very much for their support. And certainly thank you for taking the time to join us today. And as we get started, just want to offer a few pointers so that you can participate in today's webinar. Look to the chat feature, and in there, we're going to share some resources, some really cool information that we have to share with you. And certainly the folks at KnowledgeLake and Microsoft are sharing some resources in there as well. But also go into the chat right now and just say hello and let us know where you're joining us from. Please ask questions of our speakers, of our panelists that we have today, using either Q&A or chat, and we'll do our best to get to as many of them as we can later in the webcast, but we might also take some as we go along, so feel free to come in and comment and share your thoughts. And towards the end of the event, we'll be sending a link. A link will open up to take a feedback survey. We greatly appreciate what you have to say about how we're doing today, and also again, just to share your thoughts so that we can bring you more great programming like this. And this webinar is being recorded and it will be posted to AIIM.org's resources learning page in just a few days. And I would like to start by introducing our lead panelist today. Peggy Winton is the president and CEO of AIIM, and with years of program, product, and business development experience, Peggy Winton is responsible for the strategic, technical, and business direction of AIIM. Peggy believes that every organization is on, or should be on, a digital transformation journey, and that the heart of this journey is the drive towards understanding, anticipating, and redefining internal and external customer experiences. So right now, I'm going to turn things over to Peggy to continue our talk today. Hi, Peggy.
Hi, thanks, Teresa. And I am just tickled to death to be joined today by Ron Cameron, CEO of KnowledgeLake, and Ian Story, who's Principal Group Program Manager at Microsoft. Excuse me. Both gentlemen come today in a very special position, I think. They are both serving on the AIIM Board of Directors. So not only are you getting subject matter experts within their own respective organizations, but you're getting two leaders in the industry who take off their product hat and put on an AIIM and an industry hat to ensure that all of us optimize our information in whatever business we've got. So Ron, welcome. Man, you've got as many years on you in this business as I do. Age before beauty, all right? Ron, you've been known as a serial entrepreneur. I like that. And an avid student of leadership, discovering early on that the secret to making a true successful business is hiring amazing people and then creating a culture that challenges them to grow and prosper. I see that KnowledgeLake recently was once again awarded one of the best places to work in the St. Louis area. So congratulations to you.
Thanks, Peggy. Great to be here. Exciting to see all the comments in the chat window. It's really, really fun.
It really is. Well, if folks don't know it, Ron and his business partner, Bob Bultman, launched KnowledgeLake back in 2001. You had an interesting switcheroo selling to Fujitsu PFU and then brought it back again. So that's really very, very exciting. And the goal has always been to be a first mover to bring ECM functionality to the Microsoft SharePoint platform. And what a segue that is for you, Ian. Welcome. It's great for us to have OneDrive and SharePoint leadership representative here today. And it's not going to be all about M365, but we do want to talk very much about how KnowledgeLake works and really prospers on the M365 platform. So welcome to you.
Yep, it's great to be here, Peggy. It's nice to be on a call together that's not a board call.
Amen
to do a
that.
webinar together. Yep, fantastic.
That's great. Well, I think you both, and I hope our audience will see that this year, my gosh, we're almost halfway into it, is really shaping up as almost a year of reckoning for many organizations when it comes to building out their information management strategies. And why do we say that? I think it's because of three factors. They're really converging, but they formed last year. The first is that the long-term trends that contribute to information chaos, and I know you feel it, those increasing volumes and varieties of all the information that's swirling around your organization, it's not going away and it's not getting better, it's accelerating. The pendulum that swung so wildly in the direction of remote working last year, we had no choice, really forced organizations into almost a mad dash, a scramble to deploy collaborative tools. That opened up opportunities that had never been there before, but also exposed a little bit of slapshod policies and practices when it comes to governance and just the enablement of information. And finally, we all feel increasing customer demands and customer expectations. The pandemic-induced demand for convenience and availability is going to outlast all of this. And we've just simply got to deliver products and services faster than ever before. So I think the collective impact of these three factors is really a rising recognition of the weak points in many information management ecosystems. And we've said this for a few years, a monolithic mindset or a monolithic system with a single content repository is just not going to cut it for your organization anymore. It's interesting that 92% of you agreed that your organization really has to modernize your approach in order to meet all these three challenges and factors I just said, but so many more. And our conversation today, and we want it to be a conversation, is really about what does that mean, modernization? And what are the key modernization elements that really have to be designed to put people before technology? And I know that Ron and Ian are going to help me in this. And as Teresa said, we do encourage you to ask some questions throughout. We'll do the very best we can to stop and take those. And Ian and Ron, if you can help me and you see a question that you'd really like, jump in there and do that. And we may ask a few of you to just weigh in using the chat feature, because we're asking a lot about practices and prioritization. So Ron, I'll start with you with the first question. You obviously work with a lot of customers at KnowledgeLake that are supporting, and maybe they're even propping up legacy ECM systems. No judgment there. What do these systems typically look like now in terms of functionality? What are you seeing in terms of, limitations or gaps when it comes to meeting these new business drivers?
It's a great question, Peggy, and Ian. Great to see you today. Look forward to the chat today. We've been working in this space, KnowledgeLake, since 2003, and really our core driver of our business really is modernizing ECM systems. That's what it's been all the way back to when SharePoint was initially launched. So we've got whatever that is now, 18 years, I would say, a hands-on experience of kind of looking at the market through the lens of, man, there's a lot of older legacy software out there that people desire to modernize. So I think I don't know, I can't imagine who would be a better subject matter expert than the people at KnowledgeLake. There's about 80% of our business is really companies out there that are looking to move forward into a newer generation of software. So it's a unique opportunity for me to share today. And I really love the participation we got. Wow, it's fantastic. And man, I really don't want today to be about KnowledgeLake or Microsoft. I really want to be the best source of information to kind of I'll look through Ian and I's lens here at kind of what we see in the market, hopefully to help the people that are looking today. But, to answer the question, the applications and how people use ECM software is sort of all over the map, but their desire to modernize usually comes back to really the same 4 key things. And they're all really common sense, but just to kind of iterate those, because we study these every day and we see the same pattern over and over again. Most companies want to reduce cost. They want to reduce cost by moving these workloads to the cloud. It's a huge component of our business. They don't like managing software. They don't like managing hardware and going through the upgrade cycles, paying a staff of administration people to administer these complex sort of proprietary software systems that are ready to just kind of get back to their core business and let the experts that run software things do that from the cloud. And that's sort of obviously been the trend in the industry for a long time. Also, many of these systems are 10, 15, sometimes even 20 years old out there. And when they were acquired, they were typically acquired, or generally these things are still acquired to be the unstructured content repository that aligns with some core IT investment. That's, for example, SAP or whatever the core line of business system is. So it's to extend the value of that and associate the unstructured content with that system. And those systems change. And as soon as those core systems change and the ECM system hasn't, man, now you got all kinds of integration problems, and they really need, so it's aligning with IT investments that are always seem to be a key driver of modernization.
But how often do you find organizations just hanging on to what they have because they've already invested so much, and it's like, darn it, we're gonna get that last ounce of value? Do you see
it's
that
all the time? And there's a number of obstacles that we see all the time, and a lot of times their hands are tied because for all the obvious issues, I don't have the budget it takes to get it done. I'm really worried about picking something wrong and losing my job, and there's a litany of issues and obstacles. How do I get the 100 million content objects migrated out of the old system? There's a whole bunch of obstacles out there, but man, it's companies like KnowledgeLake, like Microsoft. Man, we do this every day. We see the same set of repetitive playbook in these situations. So we can help. But going back to the drivers of why the modernization, it's always about, better alignment with what the core IT investments are. It's always about gaining efficiency because, man, there's so many new technologies that are available today that weren't available when the old generation of software was acquired. Things like today, like all the artificial intelligence stuff, machine learning, RPA technologies, none of that existed. And now the driver for work from home, another huge efficiency driver, is working from home. But then the fourth thing, and I'll end here, is it's always about risk mitigation, because that previous generation of software, man, everybody, all the executives of the company are always worried about, how susceptible the system might be to malware or invasion from a third party. All this, all the new ransomware junk that's going on in the world, all the new current generation of software is better equipped. It's not perfect, but it's better equipped to deal with that than software that was architected, decades ago. So we see those same 4 things kind of repetitively, time and time again. And anyway, and I just wanted to restate these. I'm sure everybody on the call would probably just reinforce that. But Ian, is that sort of the same thing you're seeing?
Yeah, definitely. A couple things I'd add to what you talked about, Ron, from the security and compliance perspective. No one is going to be perfect there, but what we often see with the Microsoft Cloud is, we have more folks managing security and compliance than any individual customer can possibly have. And so sometimes it's just a matter of, manpower and so forth, where, knock on wood, we haven't seen those types of breaches yet in the cloud providers. You look at any of the ones that have gotten really well publicized, where content has been exposed and so forth, and they've traditionally been, on-premises systems behind some retailers or someone else's point of sale or something like that. So, that's a great driver that we see. The other point that I'd just add on here, because, I was a customer for a long time, JP Morgan, Washington Mutual, Weyerhaeuser, and I managed these systems, right? And so for those that are system administrators that are on the call here, or records managers that are managing these systems, what I would always reflect on is, while of course those systems have costs associated with them, the infrastructure, the servers, the maintenance, the staff to support them, and so on. As you move to the cloud, it's not about getting rid of your job. There's plenty of work to be done, but instead of spending every night, patching servers and, dealing with outages and running backups and all those things, you can be, working on more value add things to the business. So frankly, what we've seen with a lot of customers is their IT department has kind of begrudgingly gone into this because they've been kind of forced to, and then they found like a whole new career where they're now adding a lot more value to their business instead of running backups and patching servers and those sorts of things. So,
not about the plumbing,
exactly,
but about the really innovative. Well, you said some good points, Ian, just about what are some of the things in terms of calculating costs. I think KnowledgeLake refers to it as legacy debt. And I don't know if that's a common phrase, but I wonder how many organizations actually take the time to calculate their own legacy debt. And all these factors that Ron, you mentioned, go into that. So if those are the gaps and those are the limitations to legacy systems, let's talk about what a modern enterprise should do, what capabilities it should have. At AIIM, we've always said that it really needs to seamlessly link content, process, and analytics together almost on the fly, so it can respond so quickly to this changing business environment we're in right now. And you both said this as it relates to our people and our external customers, it has to provide a compelling, top-notch user experience that really enhances the day-to-day work of business users so they can get on with more innovative kind of work. So Ron, what components or characteristics do you think this modern system absolutely has to offer?
Peggy, you just really hit my favorite one. You just brushed over it there, which is the user experience, because everybody wants their users to be as efficient as possible. So I love the fact that, Microsoft 365 is as a platform, it's what almost 100% of corporate America, well, all over the globe, it's what everybody uses. I mean, they have literally 100% penetration. And to make that make Microsoft 365 really the collaborative front end of these systems, it's efficient because everybody already knows it. There really is no training class. It just lights up and starts working. And I think that's number one far and away, is the fact that have it extend something your users already know, which is Microsoft 365 is an obvious one. But my favorite topics on this list, and these are going to be also very obvious, but man, when companies today are looking for that next system, okay, make sure that system is a true cloud native set of software. Don't find a vendor that's got, all of their same old on-prem perpetual software spinning in virtual machines in the cloud. That's not a good solution. Okay. So look, and there's many example vendors out there. Certainly KnowledgeLake and Microsoft aren't the only two that have great, well-architected software. So anyway, cloud native, I think, is a really key factor, because I like to look in things in terms of this market and the things we choose. Make sure that what you pick is going to have at least like a 20-year life cycle. You don't want to be refactoring these systems more than about once every 20 years. It's really, really hard and expensive. So get it right. Pick the, the most, the top-notch sort of believable, good proven system that you can pick right now with good cloud native technology.
I'm going to jump on that. I'm going to jump on that for a minute, sure. Ron. Cloud native. What does that mean in terms of KnowledgeLake's visibility or access to your customers' information? You don't actually touch it that way, do you?
No, and I'd say that's going to be pretty much the same for the cloud native CSPs. These are architected well. All of these, the major popular software products that all your data is encrypted whether it's in transit or at rest, it's encrypted with a key. Even our DevOps teams can't see any of the data. So the data is moving through, but nobody can see it. And that's going to be pretty much the same. That's sort of an industry staple, I would hope anyway. But yeah, definitely, the security aspect of it's really important. But the second thing for me is really the no code, low code. It's definitely the way of the world right now. And everything that we do, everything, on the Microsoft side, it's no code, low code configuration type world. So, somebody to actually have to touch the keyboard, a developer to touch the keyboard should be a pretty rare thing. It shouldn't be unavailable, but it should be the rarity. We should be able to automate these things with what Microsoft, I think they call them citizen developers, which I think is a pretty effective term. But also need to look at, the vendors that are really making investments into the future of the software. There are numerous companies in our marketplace. Obviously I would never name names, but they architected their software years ago and they're just not going back to touch it. They're not big on innovation. So, I'll point out Microsoft in particular, man, they've made their way to the number one spot, like in the Gartner Magic Quadrant, because man, they've got thousands of people that work every day on innovating and aggressively adding new features. So anyway, look for those vendors and look for ones that have the ability to scale. Scalability has always been an issue. And when you talk to, when you're evaluating vendors, make sure you talk to live customers. So that's sort of my guidance. Ian, you got any more nuggets on that topic?
Yeah, I mean, what you hit on to start, where you just want to be in the user experience where people live all day. Look, people spend a lot of their day in Office, in Windows, in Microsoft Teams, and those are Microsoft products, right? So having great integration there, I think, is one of the key areas. You touched on security, and again, just sitting in a container, taking a bunch of on-prem software, putting it in a container and running it in Azure is not the same as being cloud native. It just isn't.
Right.
And what's in that container is that same old software that was written 20 years ago or something, with the same old security flaws, with the same non-encryption on the content, just sitting in a container and so forth. That is not a way to move to the cloud, right? That's the kind of thing people did 10 years ago. Where they would take something and host it in a virtual machine or something like that. But that's not a cloud native approach now. It's not the approach that we've taken at Microsoft or that you've taken at KnowledgeLake, to really build things out using Microsoft Azure, all the capabilities that are provided there and so forth.
You both talked about just the user friendliness aspect of it, but what about the business applications themselves? Our community at AIM always says that delivering content in context is one of the top capabilities, one of the top things on their wish list. And I think this customer expectation and the new customer demands are really leading that, because those are the things that fuel those customer facing applications. Both of you, as you talk to customers, are you finding that it's the business users, those folks on the front line, that are really pushing for some of these capabilities like low code, but they're just pushing for change overall? Is that sort of your best customer right now?
Yeah, in my experience, definitely the case. If you're a knowledge worker, maybe you have a lot of meetings every day, or you're in Office, or if you're in Teams or what have you. But if you're not a knowledge worker and you're working in a tool like SAP, or you're working in Workday or one of the other kind of larger enterprise applications, having these capabilities right at your fingertips, incredibly important. And that's where we've spent a lot of time building integrations, again, both on the Microsoft side and on the KnowledgeLake side. I know, Ron, you've got a lot of work that you do today to make it so that your content can seamlessly show up in these applications, and you can pull and push data to and from these applications. If you're processing invoices, it's not enough just to scan them and store them, right? That is not how work gets done. So maybe you can speak a little bit to what KnowledgeLake has done.
Yeah, we KnowledgeLake, we have RPA and another feature. I'm sure everybody's heard of RPA. I'm probably not going to spend a bunch of time defining that, but in addition to RPA, there's an offshoot of that called RDA, remote desktop automation, which is really RPA technology, but it's initiated at the user level. So it's a common feature in our industry pretty much, but so whatever native application you're in, we'll actually add a little button to the top of the menu bar of any application you're using, using drag and drop low code, no code interface. And basically that will allow you to pull the data off whatever screen you're on and actually issue a search and see a hit list for the associated unstructured content, Peggy, as you say, in context. And it's the most common required feature of any of the systems we deploy is that in context sort of interface to these systems, because switching context and do a manual search and all that stuff, it's just not where it's at in today's world.
And of course, there's not a little box around an ECM system. The content there doesn't live in isolation or shouldn't. And, our research shows that 54% of organizational content, it's not in a designated ECM system. It's in those business applications. So we got to set it free and make the flow seamless between.
It's in those business apps it's in those business apps, or it's sitting on people's laptops and desktops in their OneDrives, on file shares and so forth. And that's where, again, both KnowledgeLake and Microsoft, we've invested a lot in helping customers move that content in, whether it's with Microsoft tools like our Sync client, or we acquired a company a year and a half ago called Mover to help you migrate content in, or the team at KnowledgeLake helping you consolidate and move content. Like you said in the introduction, Peggy, it's not necessarily about one single system where everything lives. We're realistic about it, but as much as you can consolidate to the cloud, we think that there's a lot of opportunity there. It's no longer this world of systems of record and systems of engagement, because people didn't like moving things from their system of engagement into the system of record, and then now I need to work on that, but I can't because it's a record and so forth, right? Those systems have really kind of come together. And that's what we're doing with M365, and that's what KnowledgeLake is helping our customers do.
Well, we're going to dive into that. Okay, go ahead.
Yep,
go ahead.
I'll pose one quick question to you on that topic. You obviously know our legacy business plan for almost 2 decades. We worked with SharePoint on-prem, and that was the launch of the company. We've since moved everything to the cloud. We're, one of our core staples of our business is SharePoint Online. And man, we deal with customers every day who have got a pretty much really negative taste in their mouth about the word SharePoint for obvious reasons. The sprawl of, sort of how it doesn't get administered in an organization. It kind of takes on a life of its own, and problems with scalability, all that stuff. Man, could you talk for just a little bit about, I always, had I been, some executive at Microsoft, which I'm not, man, I would have just called your online offering something different. But talk about the differences in the technology and why it's okay to call something SharePoint Online and it's different than the old SharePoint.
Yeah, I joke a lot that SharePoint Online is not your father's SharePoint, right? Look, we have a wonderful set of customers who use and leverage SharePoint on premises, things like SharePoint 2010, SharePoint 2013, all the server editions of SharePoint. And we love those customers, we love those deployments. And frankly, the reason it spread so quickly and so broadly it was so easy to use. But that also did create challenges where it grew too quickly and became unmanaged. And, the records managers that are here on the call are like, oh man, I'm still trying to get my hands around those SharePoint sites and so forth. But because of that success, a lot of folks think of SharePoint in the context of those older versions of SharePoint that they may still have deployed inside their enterprise, and think SharePoint Online, or what we provide with Microsoft 365 or Office 365, is the same thing. And it really isn't. While many of the functions are the same, the core infrastructure, backend, scalability, and so forth is dramatically different in SharePoint Online. We have customers in SharePoint Online with billions of documents, with petabytes, not terabytes, not gigabytes, but petabytes of content in a single tenant, right? One of our customers who's a public reference, Accenture, right? They have hundreds of thousands of employees putting all of their content, billions of documents, petabytes of content into their SharePoint Online environment. So a lot of the things that you may have run into with older versions of SharePoint that were built, let's be fair, 10 years ago in some cases, just don't apply to SharePoint Online, right? It would be like saying, you know, my car from the 80s is the same as the car today. It's not,
Yeah.
right? Even if it's the same manufacturer, it's an entirely different car. The Toyota Corolla that you bought in, you know, 1995 is an entirely different car than the one that you have today. And so, you know, we really invite folks to bring those challenges to us, and you know, work with our partners like y'all at KnowledgeLake to, you know, let's see if those challenges even really still exist. Or look, let's be honest, there's a lot of competitors out there who will feed the market with, you know, SharePoint can't store more than 5,000 things, or SharePoint can't do this, or SharePoint can't do that. And you know what? That was maybe true with SharePoint 2007 or SharePoint 2010 on-prem, but it is not the case with today's modern SharePoint. So again, not your father's SharePoint. And we have customers and partners like yourselves that can attest to that. And, you know, partners that are, again, like KnowledgeLake, moving huge workloads with millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions, billions of documents to SharePoint Online.
I
Can
know we've
absolutely
got,
attest to that, Ian.
yeah, I know we've got questions, and we're going to get more questions about that and differences and recent update, et cetera. But I think we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about, okay, how to get there. So we've talked about the limitations and the gaps that exist in legacy systems. We've talked about the aspirations and the modern capabilities folks are looking for, that connection with those business applications that are just so important when it comes to innovation, when it comes to meeting customer demand. Let's talk about migrations and upgrades. So how do you get there? And let's face it, most of them are so painful. No wonder. It used to be that rip and replace was almost the only option. And of course, that's so traumatic for budgets, for the workers themselves, for processes. Ron, you said earlier, gosh, that you know, people want these capabilities, but they were so tied to whatever the supporting infrastructure was. There's a hesitancy to say, oh my gosh, am I going to blow my whole processes? The rip and replace approach certainly doesn't account for all those many dimensions of information management. We mentioned how many different flavors of ECM there are. So talk a little bit more about a more effective way to achieve modernization. What are we looking for in that in terms of effective and acceptability and wider adoption? How do people even start thinking about this?
Yeah, it's probably the best question, because, you know, everybody that's on the call today that has one of these systems, they probably are sitting on this call, you know, looking for that answer right there. And, you know, I wish there was a magic bullet, but of course there's not, right? I would tell you that we see the same repetitive use case over and over, and we've done literally hundreds of migrations from both on-prem SharePoint to the cloud and legacy ECM to the cloud. And I would tell you first, KnowledgeLake and a number of our partner companies have some pretty world-class software. So if you've got, and I hate to name names, but, you know, there's a lot of, you know, like, for example, the old IBM FileNet software out there, which is, it's a tremendous platform in its day. I actually used to own a prior company in the 90s that was a FileNet reseller. I think it's a great piece of software for its time. But they have hundreds of millions of content objects locked up in a highly proprietary format. But, you know, like KnowledgeLake, and like I could mention 2 or 3 companies that not only us internally, but that we also partner with, that have the technology to actually read all of the intricate data out of that FileNet system, and insert name here, sort of. I'm just using FileNet as an example, to get not only the documents, but all of the other extraneous data, like the annotation data that can't be lost, like the old cold documents. We render those to PDFs. All of the other object types that are sort of the rare ones. All of those things have been considered because we've been through this so many times. So first off, from an escape perspective, there absolutely is a way to get that content out. Don't think it's impossible, because it happens all the time. So getting the content out of the system can be done. Okay. But the hardest part, though, is not necessarily that, because that's stuff that's been done. Really, the hard part and the consideration needs to be, it's how those systems have been woven into the fabric of the business from a process perspective. So you'll typically have a legacy ECM system that may have 5 or 10, in some cases even 100 integrations done into other line of business systems, and they drive process and other systems. Those have to be done very carefully. And I would consider, that next generation platform, pick off one department at a time, and just begin slowly learning and slowly migrating, getting an early win. You need to look good. You need to look good inside your company. So don't pick something that's impossible to start with. Pick some low hanging fruit and go create a win. Get your feet wet, and momentum will build when people see success. But I'm sorry to report that there's no magic bullet. And Ian, on your side of the world, are you seeing anything different?
Yeah, I'd say the magic bullet is oftentimes kind of let the existing system kind of age off and so forth, and look date forward. Every ECM team that I know, every customer that I work with has new projects and new requests coming in from other parts of the business that need to store and manage their content. And so what we see a lot of customers having success with is, instead of putting those on the old Documentum or FileNet or the Highland system, they put that new thing on M365, right? And they find pretty quickly, wow, there's like modern REST APIs here instead of old, COM APIs or Java APIs or what have you. And we can use Power Automate there's already a connector built for this system. We don't have to go build something with an API at all, right? And the retention and records management is significantly better than we remembered it being in SharePoint on-prem and SharePoint 2010 and so forth. We can, as we build out the content types and so forth, automatically assign what the retention should be and so on. So I would say, instead of starting with some giant lift and shift migration, start with a new business process, one of those things that's coming into the front door of your ECM team, your legal department, your records management department. Hey, we've got this particular thing. Start there. And after you get one of those, then go pick off one of the older ones, maybe one that maybe the next thing you do is modernize one of the existing ones, right? And still leave the old stuff in the legacy system. And then once you have the business unit using the new solution you've built, then backfill the old information in and do the newest stuff first and the oldest stuff last. And if it takes you some time, some of that old stuff will just age off and you won't need to migrate it at all, right? So
Really great point.
Yep. And I'd say a lot of folks approach these of, oh my gosh, it's going to take us 2 years to move these things and so forth. That is not the case, not anymore. The technology is there. Many of our partners, including yourselves, have really cracked the code under the covers to talk directly to databases and directly to file systems, instead of pulling everything out through an API that you can only move, 10,000 documents an hour or something. You can move, millions of documents a day by going directly. And you always do it to a copy. You don't do it to the live data. You don't want to invalidate any warranties or anything. But a lot of those legacy providers will say, oh, well, we won't support that, and you'll violate your warranty if you go directly to the storage. That's just a tactic to try to keep you scared and in the box and paying for that maintenance and so forth, right? We have
or sometimes do the math, and it's worth it. It might be worth incurring those
exactly costs. Right. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of examples of customers that have done these migrations very successfully with KnowledgeLake and our other partners. So don't be afraid of it, but don't feel like you gotta eat the elephant in one bite. Pick off one of those new ones that are coming in and go get that one going, and then build on top of that.
Yeah. Good. What are you doing to minimize context switching or keeping people in the programs and applications they already use? You both mentioned that's the beauty of your partnership in the M365 environment. I think our latest research showed that maybe there were 10% of our entire community that didn't have some instance of Microsoft. So talk about context switching.
Yeah, for us, Microsoft Teams, which has hundreds of millions of active users now, and SharePoint, powering Teams and so forth. We really see Teams as the place to pull in all your content, get work done, do your meetings, do your chats, do your phone calls, but also run applications inside of Teams. Our whole Microsoft Viva Suite around employee experience, from everything from learning to knowledge management to, you know, analytics about your workplace and how things work and so forth, is all really built and delivered around Microsoft Teams. You know, our partnership, we just announced a huge partnership with SAP around Microsoft Teams, for instance. So for us, it's, you know, of course, Office and Windows, the heritage, you know, that everybody knows from Microsoft, but incorporating all this into Teams and all your line of business applications and so forth. You see, you know, everyone in the world building integrations now. You know, Adobe and DocuSign building signing in for Teams, and you know, folks like Autodesk building engineering, drawing management, and so forth into Teams, and you know, just that whole ecosystem. And we're also realistic about the fact that there are people that use Zoom and people that use Slack and so forth. So, you know, you can be in Slack and work with your content in SharePoint as well, right? We're not Microsoft centric to the point that we, you know, ignore other partners and so forth. And then when it comes to all these line of business systems, we rely on our partners like KnowledgeLake. So
Yeah.
Ron, you can speak to some of that.
Well, that's a good segue, because I was going to ask you, Ron, where would you say KnowledgeLake really adds value here when it comes to this, you know, now thriving and robust foundation of the platform M365 and the ecosystem of third-party solutions? Where do you say that you all really add the most value?
Yeah, we're again, obviously from the conversation, everybody can tell that we're really deeply partnered with Microsoft. Microsoft's our cornerstone, but you know what we're really good at, and we're you know, I guess compared to Microsoft size, we'd be considered a boutique that really specializes in extending Microsoft 365 for the specific purpose of transactional content. What you'd commonly refer to as what we knew as the ECM market. So it's extending that suite of software for the capabilities of transaction processing, which was ECM.
Yep.
So
Invoices and claims and loans and all those sorts of, you know, high volume statements, and
the
all
high
those
value,
yep.
high volume documents that drive business is really the core of our business. But we also bring it all together. From you mentioned, you know, keeping the users in context. When somebody's using KnowledgeLake, you use KnowledgeLake and it's using Microsoft 365 on the backside, you really don't even know it. The KnowledgeLake user experience is a very cohesive experience from a cloud perspective. So we do have the UX that's all baked together, brings everything right to the users, all in one place. And in addition, you know, we're a very mission critical oriented company. We've got a support staff that, you know, 24 hours a day, you can call us and we will help you with your exact business problem. Okay. Because this is our only business. So if you're thinking to yourself, you know, wow, I've got this mission critical, again, pick your brand, Documentum system that, man, if this thing has a problem, I've got to have immediate help. That's what KnowledgeLake brings. We're the SaaS solution provider that, yes, we leverage the Microsoft platform in a lot of different ways, but you know, when you have a problem at 2 o'clock in the morning, are you going to call Microsoft? No, you're going to call your specialty vendor, which would be KnowledgeLake in this regard.
Yeah, I think that's an important point. What about upgrades? When we recently polled our community just about, oh my gosh, the pace of change and upgrades with M365, they just say that not only do they have a hard time keeping up with it, but if they tapped their average user, you know, there's a fraction maybe of the capabilities that they're using. Talk about how you guys actually help them optimize, but also know what's coming down.
Yep, we'll never apologize for continuing to innovate and drive new features, and frankly drive security fixes and so forth. Right? I know that there is you know, churn when we do that, and people hate having to apply patches and so forth. But the choices are you apply the patches or you don't. And if you don't, you have, you know, security vulnerabilities and so forth. And so, you know, we definitely don't apologize for that. We're trying to help you stay safe and protect your content and protect your organization and so on. The thing I would reflect on is when you're in the cloud, you don't have to do those upgrades yourself. The cloud providers take care of that. KnowledgeLake takes care of that with the KnowledgeLake components that run on Azure and integrate with M365. And we take care of that for the core platform of M365 and Azure. You know, you don't have to go through these things like how are we going to become GDPR compliant? No, we use M365. Here's how you do a data subject request. Here's what we do, and so forth. Here's the certifications, right? You don't have to, my goodness, there's so many folks that are still going out and trying to do these audits themselves for their own on-prem systems, and how that's going to work with GDPR again as an instance, or CCPA, or any of these. So, the upgrades, we will continue to add new features, of course. One of the things that we really rely on our partners to do is help our customers, take those new features and get the most out of them, right? This new button shows up in SharePoint, or this new thing shows up in Teams, and so on. And you start to learn about it, but if you have a partner like KnowledgeLake, they can really help you with that, and so on. But the key thing from my point of view is you're not having to do those upgrades yourself. All that testing, all that stuff, that frankly took a long time. And while you were doing all those tests and then packaging it up to deploy it and so forth, you were still vulnerable to whatever those security holes were that were being fixed in that patch.
Yep. We are running right up against our time. So I want to give you an opportunity, Ron. You put together a nice little summary, and perhaps Teresa can pull that back up so folks have a reference. We talked about so many things. We talked about the gaps. We talked about the capabilities we're looking for. We talked about prioritization and how do you even approach this? What information do you want people to walk away with today? What are the considerations? What should they keep in mind as they approach
I guess some of these things are pretty obvious, or I probably already mentioned these in the discussion, but there is no such thing as a perfect world. Okay. Not everybody has all the budget they need. I'd say nobody has all the budget they need. So, most important thing is, create a stack rank or grade your departments within your org, assuming that everybody on the call, I'm sort of assuming everybody's kind of IT-ish, and you're responsible for maybe ECM inside your organization. Look at the departments and the applications that are running, and look at the highest value ones that are the easiest. Again, those are always the best places to start. The easy ones that have, a sort of a high exposure. Or as Ian said, I think Ian's comment was actually spot on. Start with something new. Start with something new that doesn't have to run on the old ECM system. Another great idea. But the biggest thing to do is to have a win and to build some momentum. Also, we always find the need for my guidance is find a champion on the business side. So if you're in IT, man, find somebody on that business side that's in a department that wants the help. Don't force help on them. Find somebody that wants to go first, that is really going to be an advocate for you and what I call a champion. Always a huge asset for you.
You said earlier, Ron, I think I want to reiterate, when you were talking about the mission of the business, you were saying in relation to an ERP system like SAP,
Yes.
but we always say that focus on the mission of the business, because that's what everyone can get around. That's certainly what your executives care about. And then ask, what problem are we trying to solve right now? And we find that that's just a great approach for getting some of those change management partnerships.
That's a great point. So, and I'd also say spend time studying the market. Just do what you're doing right now. Plug in. AIIM is incredible. Tons of resources about our market. And also your industry peers, people in your business that have kind of gone before you. Do your own research online, which I'm sure everybody does. Create a list of vendor targets, go look at some demos. Most important thing in my mind, being a vendor, is that I love it when our prospective customers talk to our current customers. It's the best sales tool we have, because we don't have unhappy people. We strive mightily to keep our customers happy. So it makes me very happy and very proud when people talk to our customer base. That's going to be all the insight you need is to get on the phone with the customers of the prospective vendor. It's a really good place to start. And other important thing, man, expect that vendor to help you. Expect them to help you identify a migration strategy and help you build your ROI story so you can get it sold internally. And the other thing I wanted to mention, I haven't really touched on this, but there's a number of first possible good steps here, because not everybody has the big budget for the rip and replace. Okay. It's real world. So think about the pain points of the specific technology components. Maybe it's the repository, maybe it's not. There's usually 3 or 4, there's a workflow component, there's a capture component, there's a repository component, and other ancillary potential automation things nowadays, like RPA and things. But maybe you got that new department, as Ian said, you could spin up a brand new net new repository somewhere and then build a new application. But if not, look and see if maybe there's maybe a component replacement of something like a legacy capture out there, because there's, KnowledgeLake, we have a world-class, drive the scanner cloud capture application that, feeds M365. Might be a great way to modernize your current application without having to do nothing. So just some thoughts. The other thing I wanted to offer, and again, I'm not on here trying to help. I'm not trying to sell. But man, if anybody has questions, feel free to reach out. Send me an email. I'd be honored to help you and guide you. I'm Ron at knowledgelake.com, and I'd be honored to answer any questions you have about the market. And I promise not to give you too hard of a sell. So
that's generous. I know we also have some pretty good resources provided. We always appreciate when you all participate in AIIM studies and publishing of our research based ebooks and such. So we really appreciate that, and love your microbrew example that you've used at the AIIM conference and what have you. Really exciting about New Belgium brewing and actual specific use cases for so much of what we've talked about today. Great. Thanks. And as Teresa said, this has all been recorded. You'll be able to find it. Please share with your colleagues that weren't able to join us and make it today. So I think we've answered most of the questions that have come in. Really, really appreciate that. If we didn't get to your question, we will afterwards. We'll hear directly. You can hear directly from Ian and or Ron. And with that, I want to thank both of you gentlemen. You've been hearing from Ron Cameron, who's the co-founder and CEO of KnowledgeLake, and Ian Story, always a good friend of AIIM and a great resource for Microsoft. You recently accepted a promotion there, so very, very influential in some of the development there. So we really, really appreciate it. And for AIIM, I'm Peggy Winton, and want to thank our audience and hope you'll join us again next time. Take care.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Take care.